Good morning and welcome to your Daily Game Face. I am Dr. Kim Lannon here with you, with Lou. You like that?
With you and Lou.
Well, that would have been weird if I had said it that way.
Okay.
With you and Lou.
You, the audience.
Oh, with you and Lou. Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah.
You just took it away from me. Anyway. God, I always have to suck
You're wound this morning.
the fun sponge right out of it.
I am not the fun sponge.
So anyway, good morning.
Good morning.
It's a lovely week. It snowed here overnight.
It did.
That's now we have maybe close to the amount of snow Florida got.
You enjoyed that, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I so did.
Just like me,
for all my lovely Florida living people, I'm like, we didn't have anywhere near the snow that you all had, but now we might be getting closer.
And we have snow on the island. We never get snow on the island.
I know. I saw that you guys get it up there. The island makes it sound like you're in someplace warm, like Bermuda.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well,
you're not, but
it's about a mindset, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So I had a lovely weekend. Did you?
Yeah, kind of did.
Did you work?
Yes, I kind of did.
You kind of worked?
It worked. No.
You kind of had a good weekend because you worked?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. So I wanted to talk really quickly about the fact that the year of you or me has really spawned a thing.
Should.
I've gotten lots of really great feedback on living the year of me. So if people haven't followed and they're just joining for the first time today, or they haven't heard, this year's theme of 2025, when I first came on the air this year for my first show, it was the year of me. Mm-hmm. I said, it's going to be the year of Kim. So therefore I want you all to make it the year of you. So you have to do things that are going to make you your best person, do your best life, live your best of all the things you could possibly do that you haven't been doing, that you wanted to do, blah, 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 and do it in different ways. And each show has been building upon that. And man, I have gotten a lot of good response to that. So we're going to stay on that theme because one, it's working and people like it. And I'm getting lots of great thoughts and critical feedback that's really positive.
We have to rebrand it because it's kind of self-care, but people always roll their eyes at self-care. We got to come up with a new way to talk about it.
Well, because it's not. Well, I think I have been coming up with a new way of talking about it because it's not.
But
really,
we need a label.
It's not really like. It's not really just about self-care because that's where that roll of eyes comes in. It's just like, oh my God, right? Because I've been talking about it being about how to really set your boundaries, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. And I'm actually going to talk about who to avoid today. in the week of
we're going to need another hour.
I know, or a whole 4 shows.
Yeah.
But setting understanding what things mean to actually self-care. It's not just like getting a manicure, a pedicure, going for a run. It's really about a bigger, broader macro issue, and then really looking at it from different subsets of doing different things for yourself that I don't really typically break down unless you're in my office and I'm working with you as a client. I don't typically do that because I usually do it individual by individual, but I have come up with a way that as I've been going on and had the excitement of people saying, I really like this concept, going, oh, I know how to add on to this in a different way of like all the different pieces and parts by taking client stories and cases and things that have come over the years of like, oh, how do you do your best life in a different way that I've talked about it before in the past 4 years. By the way, the anniversary of my show is coming up.
Which anniversary? 6?
5. I think this is our 5th year, right? 2020, we started in February of 2020. Yes. Lou, you are my producer and I'm going to ask Cameron. Cameron's not listening because he's at school. He is texting me though. So I'll have to ask Cameron.
I don't have the timeline thing. That's not the way I think. I can't remember years.
Cameron I'll find out and I'll tell you next week, but Cameron always knows.
I'm more in the moment.
Okay. Well, that's part of being the year of you. Okay. So right out of the top, I'm going to start the show not only with that, but I'm also, because I'm excited about that, but I'm also going to, of course, I have 2 weeks, and it's not 2 weeks only, but I have 2 weeks for this particular part of one of my year of you things is I really love doing my work. I will love my work that I do in terms of my clients and my cases. And I love the fact that I teach, and I love the fact that I do this and, a million other things that I do. Someone again asked me, please write a book over the weekend. And like, I don't have time. So I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
it because people keep asking me that. So I've got to do that. And so if anyone wants to ghostwrite for me, please
There you
help
go.
me. Send them my way. Send me a ghostwriter, and I'm happy to sit down and chat, and you write it up for me and whatever. But because that's the only way I can see me having time right now. But a lot of things are coming down the pike, and I'm going to talk about those as we get into like the spring in terms of what I'm doing. But in the grand scheme of things, my big thing that I do as a side is philanthropy work, as you know.
Yep.
I love my little niche, each little niche of like things I do. Big cats, little cats, and then of course I love doing my fundraising and my philanthropy work for the New England Patriots Foundation with all the amazing charities. I know people are on tight budgets this year. I know there's a lot going on in the country around in terms of like what people want to spend and give and all those things. But, here I am doing it again. And we'll continue to do this because it's what I do. I'm doing a big event this Sunday. If you're in the area in New England and in Massachusetts and you are on, I want to say, this is going to sound really weird, and you're on my allowed list of people who can come. Because, as we know, there's particular individuals that aren't invited. But the 99.9% of the rest of the world, it's a public open event. If you'd like to come and you'd like to get tickets, you can certainly come and get them at the door. Lou, if you can, do you have the graphic?
I'm working on it.
Okay. It's Sunday the 2nd at Temezcal. I always pronounce it wrong. Temezcal or Temezcal. I don't know. But it's also Jack's. And so Woodfire Kitchen. It's on the 2nd floor. Sunday. It's not Super Bowl Sunday. Someone said to me this morning, "Oh my God, it's Super Bowl Sunday." I said, "No, it's not. I would never put an event to happen at the same time as the Super Bowl. So no. So it's Sunday afternoon when no one has anything else to do this weekend and you're getting your day ready for Monday, but you can come and have a good time. The graphic is up. If you can't see it, you can certainly log in and
you can find it on the page that you're watching right now.
You can find it on the page you're watching right now, or you can go back and find it. It gives you all the details. I have the Celtics tickets to give away that are going to be great. It's to the Miami Heat game, which will be fabulous because it's a great matchup. Obviously, I have a Travis Kelce signed jersey with a Taylor Swift CD signed packaged together.
Wow.
I know. And people are like, really? And I'm like, yep. So I also have Pollard Brook up in Seasons in New Hampshire has kindly donated $1,000 weekend stay, 2 nights, 2-bedroom loft with no restrictions for the next year from the day of from the first of the year to the first of next year for anyone to take advantage of anytime they want. So I'll be
for
doing
the whole year.
For the whole, like you can use it anytime. You can use it anytime. I misspoke. Then I have, of course, my amazing primary donors for my whole New England Patriots marathon run are the Inn on Golden Pond, and they are in Ashland, New Hampshire. They give away a 2-night stay, bed and breakfast. It's an amazing, I call it a 5-star place. You can look it up. The rooms are amazingly well appointed. The chef, also owner Mike and Erica, do the breakfast. They raise their own meat. They have their own eggs. Like, it's just an amazing place. And they give that every year. And they are my prime sponsor, along with now some other ones that are coming on board, like Temezcal and Tito's. So I'm like doing this big thing, and I can't even, there's so many things that have been given to give to this event this weekend. It's amazing. In addition to, I have Super Bowl squares. They're $100 a piece, and reminding people that they are for charity. And I've had, as usual, some complaints about the payouts, that they are not that they are not big enough. And I keep reminding people, I understand that, but it is for charity. So right now at this juncture, I'm toying with the idea of upping the ante in terms of how much the quarter payouts are. But right now, the first quarter is $250, the halftime is $500, the third quarter is $250, and the final score of the game, whether it goes into overtime or the final score, regardless, it's one score. At the end of the game is $500. So people are trying to get me to just bump it up a little bit because I have some squares left to sell and 2 weeks left. And, I probably have 60 left to sell, which I think people are maybe waiting to come to the event to get them, and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, I may bump that up a little bit. In the event that they do not all sell, what I have decided to do in case, which I don't want to do, but in the event that they don't all sell, I will just anything that's left open, that will just be an automatic New England Patriots Square for just charity, just a charity win back to me. So I
Yep.
don't give the money out, which is fair. But I've never not sold out, and I've been doing this for years. A few years ago, I did the $100 a chance for 100. There were only 100 chances, and people won $2,500. One person, that was it. So,
Yeah.
some people wanted me to give away $5,000 in prizes and do
That's a
half.
fundraiser.
And it's hard to do that, and hope people understand that when you're raising 10,000 for a minimum, and it's off of, that's one piece of this, and you're giving away 5,000,
Yeah.
that takes away a lot. And I understand that, and I get it, but $100 to win 500 isn't a bad deal. What if you win three of this, you could win the whole pot for 1,500. So anyway, I think it's a great deal. I've been doing it for years. People love it. But grab your square, please. I just had a couple people grab one on the way here today. So I'm plugging all those things because I can't express enough the amazing experience of when I go and watch the 26 charities that receive the $10,000 each prize, plus the big winner gets the $25,000 every May to the Meyercraft MVP Awards. 400 people roughly apply from their charities all over New England, and we pick the 25, and then we give away $250,000, all raised by the marathon team, and it goes to what I call some of the most tear-jerking, beautifully put together charities for so many things, and so well deserved. And on a local community level, it's such a great thing to do that you just don't see in a lot of other places. A lot of places really designate out to one particular place, and if you're very focused on giving to Dana-Farber, that's one thing, or the Diabetes Foundation, all great. But I am excited that I get to see 26 charities that are local get a big boost, and recognize people who wouldn't normally be recognized, people who are really on the ground with boots on the ground, really doing really great things, and not just at a big corporate level, just raising money. So I'm excited about that. So if you would like to come join me, please come on down this weekend. If not, you'd like to donate, any little bit counts. $100 or square. I'm shooting for $10,000 as my minimum, but always want to raise more because it goes to the same place. And thank you for the support in advance. So there's my spiel, because we're 2 weeks out from that. Now I'm going to keep fundraising throughout the time, because the marathon isn't until April 21st. But it helps me finish when I finish soon. Like if I finish that minimum and I hit that level, it makes it easier for me to train. So if anyone's ever done a marathon and has to fundraise at the same time to raise money for your charity, you're working full time and you're doing all the other things that you do in life, it's hard to do that. You have to fit it all in, and you've got the pressure on you of like having to do these kinds of events. Thank God I love doing them. So
that's very rewarding, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that day at Gillette.
It's the whole year from the time I start doing, like we ramp up every year. As soon as the marathon's over, I sort of go in a reset mode, and then I start going at it again, just planning and doing other things. And it's so exciting and rewarding because of all the great things that come back to people. And I get such a small kickback in terms of just like love and appreciation. I get no kickback financially, as you know, but that's so great because it doesn't matter, because it's so important to give back to all these amazing people. And there was a 90-year-old man 2 years ago that won the full $25,000, much to his surprise. And he had been doing this amazing work for suicide prevention and homelessness, and he goes boots on the ground out down in Boston at his age, and does it. Just some of the stories are just absolutely tear-jerking, that you hear about what people do, and you just don't know that they're doing it, but they're out there just making a difference every single day in people's lives. Just like Chris DiOrio, my friend Chris, who love him. And yes, I'm spending time, because this is about the year of you, right? When you take people who do these kinds of things. Chris DiOrio is also a runner. He raises money for a different charity. I had him on last year. And I'm going to hopefully help him. And I hope he remembers that, like 2 or 3 days before the marathon, he cooks this amazing amount of Italian food, and he goes down to this place down south in Massachusetts, and he gives out to the homeless people just dinners for free, and much to their surprise and whatever. And hopefully John and I'll recruit some friends to go on down to help that, because I'm on board with that. It's not my charity to do that, but I want to help him because I love his passion and his effort and what he does, and for nothing in return other than just that story he told last year about the woman who was like, why are you doing this? And why are you doing this for us? And she gave him the $1. And he took the $1 and put it back into his charity and said, I'll put it into my charity. And that's what it's about. So anyway, that's a big part of like why it's the year of you. Those are things that, we talk about self-care, but that's self-care. You're doing something that you're giving to someone
living with intent, right?
Right. You're living with intent. You're doing it in the most altruistic way, which of course I have that big debate with all my students every year. I love bringing it up. It's like, is altruism really true? Can you truly have altruism? Which means, like, can you actually give to others and do for others without getting anything in return or expecting anything in return? You don't have to expect it, but you always get something in return. So it's hard to like philosophically and theologically or any kind of way wrap your head around, like, is that, a truth in purity? And it's like, well, if you're getting something back, and then people will debate, well, is that with intention? Are you doing it because you want something in return? It's like, well, you're going to get it. It's just, it's what comes back to you. Then I can't talk about it today, but I can just say I have a very exciting thing happening next Wednesday night.
Ooh, okay.
So, but I'm going to tell you all about it. I don't know if I'm going to tell you all about it next Wednesday or when I come in the following Wednesday, but I got a very cool invite to something very exciting that I was like, yes, please. So that's happening next Wednesday night. And so
something with Taylor?
No, but it is, I would say, so on that vein, in the world of certain things that are going on in the theatrical world or in the world of Hollywood right now, this would rank right up there, that I will be at an event with a person doing that meet and greet, not just meet and greet, but be with them in the venue for 4 hours doing something with someone that I think people would be like, holy crap, I would love to be doing that. And I'm honored that I got asked to come and be part of it and just be there. So I'm all in. So I'm excited about that. So, and it was just it's a kudo for doing good deeds. And it was just a fluke it fluked to me that it was just a surprise, I guess, not fluke, but a surprise to get like, hey, we'd love to have you. And in a month of Sundays of all my years of doing work in theater and movies and television and all the stuff I had done in all my life coming into this field, I was like, that would be a really cool thing to do. And then all of a sudden it landed in my lap last night. So, and without any provocation, it was just like more of like surprise.
Last night. Nice.
So so I'm scrambling to move my day around next Wednesday. So it's very exciting. So Year of Me is working.
Well, yeah.
So, right.
We talked about one show we did on karma, and this is kind of a karma type of thing. Yes.
So, and karma is always good or bad. And people often use it in the context of being bad.
Right.
Like, I hope they get karma. And no one ever says that to say, get good karma. But I think when you do good things, I mean, it's not to say that you don't wonder when the foot's going to drop on your head. But, that's just that pessimistic side. You have to say, well, good things come. And then, no. But this is good. This is really good. So I'll be happy to share, but I don't want to share it until I've done it. And because I also don't need people showing up. Because people do, and I don't need that. So this will be exciting. And it would be very hard for people to show up to this, but it's exciting.
Okay.
And I haven't told anybody yet. And you all are the first people. I haven't told you. I haven't told John yet. I haven't told
John doesn't know.
Kristen. I haven't told Kathy. Nobody knows. This is my first mention of it because I literally just was in the know last night. And so now I'm sitting with it going, holy crap. So it's good.
I have a theory. Can't wait to test it.
Okay. Afterwards, you're going to tell me who you think it is?
Well, kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, don't say it on air.
No, I'm not.
Because I don't want to get caught with my face
of
my animated face.
No.
So the other thing is if people are interested in just, it's not just some like, basic event that you're coming to. If you come Sunday, Dave Russo, the quintessential comedian of Boston in my mind, next to Bill Burr,
Friend of show.
friend of mine, and the Boston Bruins and charity work that I do with him, with them, it's all connected, right? He will be my opening headliner on Sunday. So it's worth the $60 to come watch him do musical bingo, win prizes. Of course, there's silent auction items and all these things that I talked about, but just to come and see him and do musical bingo with an amazing musical bingo guy, and then Tito's, and I've got a signature drink named after my cat Kalila called the Kalila Margarita.
Wow.
I mean, it's going to be good. So
Nice.
I'm all in the mode. So I'm excited. So I think that I'm hoping to put out that energy to everybody about, working the year of you is a really good thing. And it's exciting. I debuted the kittens yesterday. If people are following my business page for Kim Lannon, and also, I don't know if I linked it over, but I know it went to my business Instagram and my TikTok. But if you didn't see, I debuted the children that are being trained for the new animal assist emotional support animals for my clients and for hiking. And they're wild children, and they have broken things in my house that they shouldn't have. They climb the walls, and they are lovely. And so if you haven't seen them, please jump on to my public Facebook page. You can see them, and they are adorable. Cinder and Ash. They have been officially debuted yesterday.
Is everybody getting along?
Everybody's getting along. We've had a few smacks, little smack.
Yeah.
The one I was afraid of, my big boy Bean, the 22-pound cat, is pretty much in love. And I think that it's the weight loss plan we've been looking for.
Okay.
So the kittens are the weight loss plan because they push him out of eating all the food. They, however, are eating too much, and they chase him around, and he chases them around, and she sits on his head under the covers, and that makes him leave. So he's up and moving, which is not normal. So, hey, it was an expensively paid for weight loss plan, but nonetheless, I think it's going to work. Okay. So did I think it cover everything here?
I think so.
All right.
So John's acclimated to the two kittens?
John, so now there's 6 cats on the bed.
Wow.
And the kittens I have seen him not move at all because they lay in between his legs or on the side of him, and they're still really little. And as soon as he moves, I'm like, don't move, you're going to crush him. And it startles him. And then,
well, it's a lesson they have to learn.
It was really interesting. The way before, it was 6 cats and a dog.
Oh, God.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah, but the dog's smaller than most of the cats. So.
Yes, he's actually bigger than the kitten still.
Yeah.
They're not quite there yet. But yes, Rocky is definitely still bigger. And he's barely 6 pounds. So it's very cute. Anyway, moving along. Year of you. So how is your year of you going? Are you doing the things I've been talking about?
Yeah, but I mean, that's something that's been part of.
It's been part of your life.
Part of me for a while, yeah.
But I've been giving you
my
extras.
year of you was about 10, 15 years ago.
Okay. You only had one year of you?
Well, when I started digging into these types of concepts and trying to apply them.
I see. Okay. So the year of you concept today is how you deserve love. People do not feel, blanket statement here, that they deserve love. Now, most people, when you ask them, do you deserve love? They would say, of course I do. But then in theory, that's in theory. But then in real life application, do people really feel that they deserve love? Do they seek out scenarios where they would get and receive love? Do they give themselves self-love of like, I appreciate myself, even in the respect of no one else giving me any respect or love? So I think starting with a concept today of you deserve love. You deserve kindness. You deserve compassion. You deserve respect. Big. I think that respect and love are so high up on the chart of how much the year of you is important, because if you don't respect yourself to have the expectation that other people will respect you, there's a disconnect that happens. And so it's really hard to live your best life when you're not going to get the love you deserve if you don't respect yourself, and then you don't gain and garner respect from other people. And And so what does that look like? And I think that people get that pop psych ethereal sort of out there hocus pocusy voodoo, like the stuff that gets written that's very cliche. And then people, like at the beginning of the show we talked about, like, oh, the eye roll of like, okay,
Yeah.
live your best life and try to, no, this is really about you have to have a commitment and intention for the day that you deserve love, and you deserve the love that you want. There's a book out there by that name.
Yeah.
Right? You deserve you deserve the love that you want. You're allowed to have the love that you want, and in whatever you need, you're allowed to do that too. And people get very shy of that because they get so used to living the life that they have, that has either been, depression been born out of deprivation, or anxiety that's been born out of deprivation, and feel that that's the norm. So they become so used to tolerating that because their resiliency goes up. A lot of times, and I've talked about this before on the show, that growing up as a gymnast in the environment, at the intense environment, with like Michelle and I've talked about before, about the intense elite environment and the rigorous schedule and the crazy coaches and the expectations, all that stuff. And then living in a household with everyone, I moved to Oregon and lived with the national team and lived with that whole group of people, and then lived in my own family's house where they were the coaches. Living under that environment builds a really unnatural resiliency to things that normal people wouldn't tolerate.
Yeah.
Because you become accustomed to
Right.
that. Now, I give that as an example that most people probably won't relate to unless you're an athlete. Like I've had, Frank Simonetti in here, or Peter Carruthers, or, some of my top end athletes. When you're sort of run of the mill, normal bell curve kind of family, that's not your typical. But people who live in emotionally neglected environments, or people who are living in parental environments where they're either indulged over the top, or they're permissed over the top, or there's authoritarianism, which is that tyranny of do as I say, not as I do, high expectations, very little warmth. It's very hard to get the love you deserve, because you get the love that you think is the norm, and that's what you think you deserve. That's a huge concept here today.
Your scale
is right. So that's a big difference between the love that I'm talking about that you deserve. You don't deserve that love. That love is substandard. That love is not, it's kind of a fantasy of something that, how do I put it? It's a fantasy of something that is neglecting. It's lacking pieces that really form out what you really should be getting.
But you think that's the norm. You think that's how it is.
Well, that's because what you've become used to is like kids who grow up, or adults, and become adults and say, well, no one ever said I love you, but I just knew that they did. And you say, how do you know? And they said, well, I don't really. I'm just going off the fact that because they were my parents or they were my siblings, that they love me. And I always say, you can't take that for granted. We need to find tangible reasons of why. Sending a voicemail. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
We have to find reasons why and how you can come up with how you are loved. That does not mean if you can't come up with it, you aren't loved. That doesn't mean, but that just because you say that then I am questioning it, you aren't loved. But too often we say things like, well, I just knew. How did you know?
Yeah.
What does it look like? Because if your standard of model is that, then how do you know that the people in your life right now love you? How do you know that you're adequately, sufficiently, and genuinely, with all authenticity, unconditionally loved? That's a hard one, because there's much fewer relationships like that than there are the other way.
Yeah.
Because we have much people. We have many people who will go out and say, I love you. And I love you is like pouring water. I love you. I love you. I love you. But at the end of the day, what does it mean? So when we say you deserve the love that you want, you deserve the love that you need, you have to be able to know, what do I not get in my relationships that gives me that, to make me feel like I can live in my best self on a daily with intention. And it can't necessarily be looking for it from those people externally. It's like, what are you living with the intention that you're accepting in your day that allows you to tolerate substandard behavior?
It's so tough. I think a lot of people run into this for the first time when they get into middle school and high school and start to form friendships where you get that, you get that kind of love and appreciation from your besties.
Right.
And then you start to compare and contrast to what you grew up with. You figure out, oh, this is more about what it's about.
And I think to that point, you also get it from when you have the contrasting comparison points, when you see other besties, friends, or their families,
Their families,
their
yeah.
family comparison, social comparison, and norming is
Oh,
very impactful on that.
I had such an experience like that with a friend's family, which was like the ideal family, and it's like, oh, this is how it can be.
Right.
You know?
Right. And there's so many like that. I hear stories about that all the time of like, well, people like to go to other families' homes because they see the comfort and they see the love and they see, the expression of it, and they see presence of mom and dad, or they see presence
Yeah.
of everyone together doing things together. And it's not this pressured, or force thing, or just on a holiday, or again, authoritarian, pushed in, like, you must be doing this, you have to be doing this, and so on and so forth.
I remember when I was young, my parents, I had a sister who was 9 years older than me.
Yeah.
And she was a handful, so they were paying attention to her, paid absolutely no attention to me, like zero. And it was like, if I didn't come home with the cops on my tail, everything was fine. And I thought it was the ideal upbringing until I started getting out in the world. I was going, oh no, I would have liked them to be a little bit more involved,
Right. And so in that way, you had the permissive and indulgent parent for you, because your sister was getting the other side of that. So you missed out on, so that's the anxiety born out of deprivation. Had I known you before, and I've said this to you before, your anxiety that you've worked on over the years, that's anxiety born out of deprivation of the emotional relationship that you deserved. You deserve to have relations. So you deserve to have love, which you say, that you were loved, like you've said, but
yeah.
Right. But it's also, you have to say, okay, you deserve a healthy relationship with people that's not maybe caught up in, this isn't just you, but caught up in like just being indulged and permissed to kind of like say, okay, just go do, because we got other stuff. And then and then you deserve to have peace. So you get the love and you get the relationships that you deserve in your life, and then it comes to having peace. Those things all fall in line. And I very rarely, in 30 years of doing my work, but then previous in real life too, I very rarely see people have those three triangle fitting pieces. People will feel like they have the love that they deserve, but then realize, well, wait a second, I don't have all my healthy relationships that I really want, because I allow things to happen that I don't really want. And then my peace is always rocked.
Yeah.
So nothing's perfect, but it would be nice to have that triangle, that triad of the love, the relationships, and the peace be much more solid and connected than that.
Yeah.
And I think people striving for that, to live their daily, is a good. And people say, well, how do you do that? Right. So the how-tos are hard, because especially when you're, now an adult, it's hard when you're a kid, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
So therefore it's hard. You might know that something's off, but you don't know how to fix it, nor do you have the power in the family to maybe change it, because it's a power differential. But when you're an adult and you've had these things going through your head, and then you're like, what do I do about this? And how do I get this moving forward? So, I think one of the things is, avoiding or getting rid of, expelling some very specific things. So in terms of people who put you down, or condescend to you, or are belittling to you, or are telling you the truth under the auspice of loving you, because it's the truth and you need to hear it, right?
Yeah.
But and there's nothing wrong with that piece. Telling you the truth is not, there's nothing wrong with. But if the delivery of the truth is in a and it's not even critical, it's in the manipulative, maneuvering, kind of gaslighting kind of way, that's not healthy. And that would be someone that I would say you would need to avoid them, or have limited contact with that person, because they are taking away the ability to get the love that you deserve, because they're not loving you. They're judging, criticizing, being mean, doing whatever. And so to avoid those types of people or to kind of expel them or put them at a distance would be way healthier. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so, and that's putting yourself first. If someone puts you down and you don't speak up because you're not an assertive person, because you haven't gotten those things to build your self-esteem up, you got to look at that piece, if that's one of your biggest pieces, and say, okay, I have to take baby steps to speak up. Like I have a client this week that was very excited. She texted me yesterday and said, I spoke up for the first time in my family. And, she's a 30-year-old woman, and she's been dealing with people that really walk over her all the time, and she can't get away from them because they all live in the same house. And I said, girl, you need to stand yourself up and start saying baby step things to start feeling like you have a voice in this house. And all she said, she gave me this long text and said, you don't have to respond. I just want you to know. And I didn't respond, but she gave me this long text, all proud of herself, because where she's getting her deserved perceived love is that I'm giving her an unconditional space to be able to be safe in, so that she doesn't have to feel like she's going to get judged, she's going to get criticized. And she's good at taking feedback. Like she loves the fact that I'm straight up with her and doesn't interpret it as a put down. It's like you need for yourself to have the feeling where you have self-control and a voice in the situation. And when someone belittles or talks down to you or says mean things to you or swears at you and calls you a name or does that, what are we doing with that? Yeah. And so she's really taken it to heart to move on that so that she can live more authentically the way she wants to. Because what happens when those things happen, she gets paralyzed and then she wants to go lay in bed, cover her head up and not get up. And I'm like, you can't do that, because then it's just perpetuating the same thing. And so her interpretation originally a few years ago, when I told her like about this avoidance, she went right to, I'll just avoid it. And I'm like, no, it's not, and it's not a better term, because it's really about healthy boundary avoidance. It's avoiding coming into contact with people who suck your mental energy, who take that piece from you, that don't deserve that and put you in a bad headspace for you to have self-doubt. And that's what that particular piece means, is to be able to avoid that kind of thing. Is really, if someone's making you feel bad about yourself, look to see is it them making you feel bad about yourself, or are they giving you unconditional love that you then feel bad about yourself because you aren't living up to your own expectation and they're doing it in a healthy way. Well, there's a big difference.
I was going to ask you about your part in this, because sometimes there are people who, like, we would call it belittling or condescending or judging or things like that. But you know what? That's kind of the way they were made up. They were brought up. Then there isn't the malicious content behind it. It's just their approach. It's just, that's what happened in their family. So they just bring it over.
Right.
So how do you balance that, understanding that with how you're perceiving it? I mean, how much of it is how you're perceiving it and how much of it is actually there?
So it's really,
or does it matter?
So it matters. It's really dependent on the person. So of course it's individual by individual. It's also about, like, I'm thinking of a person like right now that you can't tell her anything because her perceptual field is so all about taking everything in perceptually, as no matter what you say, unless it's like Pollyanna and like very much about rainbows and puppies and all that, it's negative. And she perceives it that way. That's not on me or whoever else is delivering the message, because it's her interpretation, because she could have 4 other people around going, nobody said that like that to you. You're interpreting it completely wrong. And then she gets very flip about it. Like, well, I didn't know. So that's her. And being able to know that if you know yourself that you're going to deliver a message out of love and kindness to help someone out of, like, I really don't think that's a good idea, or I really don't think that's a great way to go about that. Or, that's going to create a chain of events that's really going to backfire on you. I think you're going to regret it. That's a great delivery, and it's really healthy. I'm thinking of this person, like they've been given that kind of feedback, and that feedback has landed on them as if you're ripping their face off and burying them under the Satan's grave kind of thing. Because literally because they get into, how dare anyone like think that I'm not like right and that my feelings aren't valid. And she goes right to that whole, like, my feelings now aren't valid. I'm like, no, your feelings are valid, but your perception's off. So if 10 people are standing in front of you saying like the same thing, and you're still saying like everyone's attacking you, it becomes a you issue. And so it can't always be that you avoid and maybe avoid isn't the best word, I'm just using it. You detach with love from these things and say, I have to distance myself from that because it's toxic and it's not healthy. Unfortunately, we're currently in an era of when people are trying to live their best life, they get into this groove of, got to eliminate all the toxicity out of my life. And like now we just rampage through like everybody in your life, and one person says one wrong thing to you and they're toxic, or, there's a very specific, it's a whole nother show, how to identify toxicity and when it's time to really walk away from it, and when it's time to put some distance, and when it's time to like, do other things with it, because it's not an all or nothing thing. But that's a big piece of what I'm talking about. Like with this particular individual is there's so many people, actually there's not so many people like her. There's a handful of people that do get into that mode of very over personalized.
Yeah.
Don't read cues correctly, don't want to read the cues correctly, automatically get into victim mode, total victim mode. I'm in that mode. And that's not living. That's not the year of you. That's the year of you done badly or done poorly or done unhealthy. That's just the year of pity party and self-deprecating that we can blame on other people. And that's actually what a lot of people do. They get into that mentality of victimization, and it goes right down the chute, and it's so unhealthy. So if you don't like the word avoid, which I'm using today, you can just say like detach. You're detaching with these things. Still in the same thing. So staying away from people who don't take responsibility for their actions ever, not just sometimes, like ever. The people, quintessential narcissists, do not take responsibility for themselves. And here's one of the debates I've had recently with a couple colleagues, and not really debates, they agree, but we have different terminology, and then some clients and then some people in my personal life. There's a difference between saying I'm sorry and taking responsibility. And or accountability. If you look at the psychology of how to take accountability and responsibility for actions, the number one thing is, besides just saying I'm sorry, means nothing, by the way. You could tell me and I could tell you, as long as it's been never before, I'm sorry, and we would take it and we'd say absolutely no problem. Here's where the line starts to get really blurred, is when a person keeps repeating the same behavior over and over again. And with a lot of my clients, I deem it like if it happens more than once a year, we've got a problem. And people do it. If a person does not change the behavior that they're apologizing for, and I always say this, if they're still doing the same behavior that they're apologizing for while they're apologizing for it, Houston, we have a problem. Right? Because there's so many people that do that. They'll be saying I'm sorry while explaining away the behavior, gaslighting, and then doing the same behavior while not recognizing, and I air quote, not recognizing, because they do, that they're doing the same behavior, and then turn it and look at you and say, I'm taking responsibility for myself because I'm sorry. No.
The best apology is change behavior.
Right. And so responsibility and accountability are taking the steps to show immediate action of change behavior that's tangible to other people or that other person, so that you, if you're the receiver of the poorly run behavior, you can make an active decision of, is this a love that I deserve that's going to change, or is this something that I need to back away from and detach from? And if you don't see that, and you are so tolerant of this badly run behavior, and you are hopeaholic, and you keep thinking, well, eventually they'll change because they say I love this, I'm taking responsibility for it, I said I'm sorry. No, that does not fly with me.
My favorite is I'm sorry that you
I'm sorry that you feel that way, that I did this. That's not I'm sorry. Anything that's if it's I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, we're good. If it's I'm sorry but you did this,
I'm sorry your feelings get hurt. That's not taking responsibility.
Well, because that usually follows up with, I'm sorry your feelings got hurt because I'm an asshole. I just fill in the blank. I'm sorry that you got hurt And then I go, because you were an asshole.
Yeah. You're oversensitive.
Right. You were an asshole.
Yeah.
Not me, you.
Yeah.
But people that again, it gets to the vulnerability of the person to have to go that far. It's like, stop the sentence at, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings. But that's hard for people.
Yeah.
And full accountability is like 3, sometimes 4 steps. It's, I'm sorry, immediate change of behavior, talking it through, showing a resolve of an action plan, what's going to happen, and then actually following through on it. I won't say many, I'll say some people will just say sorry. They'll talk about the action plan because they've been pop cultured into psychology teaching them, or they've talked to a therapist that said, this is what you have to do. They tell their partner, their friend, their whatever, that that's what they're going to do. And then what they do is they get passive acceptance. And you know what passive acceptance is?
No.
They get you to, through passivity, to believe that they're telling you that that's what's going to happen. And then time goes by and it's like a reset for the behavior to cycle back through and happen again. And because you have become passively accepting of what they say, because you believe in hopeaholic that, oh, they're going to change because they know what to say. You're going to see that in a lot of narcissistic behavior of people who have very characterologically damaged systems. You see that a lot in addiction and people who are trying to be in good recovery that aren't working it really hard enough. Don't look at that piece. They will con you, for lack of a better term, into believing that. And if you are a open-hearted, accepting, tolerant, very resilient, used to being like told those things, you will tolerate that behavior much longer than someone who's been, gone around the block a couple of times and is just like, you're out. So there's there's the extremes of these. There's the really big people pleaser who will really let it in and let it happen over and over. And then there's the people who are just like, you're out. And I am always about like, let's try to find a happy medium until we can't.
Right.
Because we have to figure out if this person that's doing this with you is going to give you, are they going to complement your life to give you your best life? Are they going to give you love that you deserve because they lean into you and you can lean into them and it comes together? Or are you going to lean into them and they're going to smack you around emotionally, right? Yeah. Or, it could be other things too, but just, in terms of emotionality, right? Okay. And then this goes to the piece of, you have to really look at your own self. Where are you contributing to your not getting what you need in your best life? Like, what's happening on a daily, a weekly, a monthly, whatever? What are you doing? Are you contributing to getting abused? Are you contributing to opening those doors? This goes back to the show on boundaries, is if you're not setting a good boundary for yourself, not on another person, but I will not tolerate this behavior. And you set that commitment to yourself. I will not allow this to happen. I will not say yes to things I want to say no to, et cetera, et cetera. If you're not doing those things, that's part of that reflection of, are you allowing abuse, gaslighting, maneuvering, coping strategies that other people are using to get you to give them what they want and need, but yet neglecting yourself? Yep. That is abuse to yourself. And therefore, are you looking at that? Are you actually being able to say, wait a second, I'm not doing myself a service because I'm actually, a lot of times, this is a parallel process. It's like, my family and I did this, and now I'm doing it with other people. And usually there's a pretty close correlation of family one-to-one parallel to you in relationships doing that with other people, unless you have good awareness and you try to stop doing it. And the freedom that comes, the freedom that comes from breaking away from that, or avoiding or detaching from that parallel process of, I'm walking this walk. I know I do this with my family. I allow this. And now I'm so used to it. I'm allowing it to happen. I'm participating in the same way as I did with my family. You have to really look at that, because that's where your part is coming in, because you actually, you're allowing it.
Back to one of the big themes of the year, you train people how to treat you.
Yes.
And this is what you have to be more aware of.
Right. And that's one, I've said that for years with my clients. And I know you've picked that colloquialism up for me, is that I tell people more and more, and especially in the past year of you concept that I've been bringing up, is you're training people how to treat you, and you've got to retrain them how to treat you differently. Mm-hmm. If you want something different or better, you have to train them how to treat you. I do get some feedback from some people who are have those what I call the seat of the soul injuries, right? The narcissistic injuries that will be like, why should I have to do anything to make that? No, because you have to look at your part. Everybody has a part, which
Right.
then people think you're blaming me. No, you have to figure out where you can back yourself out, where you're putting yourself in. If you're allowing bad behavior to happen to you, if you're allowing someone to say mean things to you, and mean doesn't mean critical feedback. Mean means like if someone's swearing at you directly and calling you a name, if you're allowing that to happen
Yeah.
and you don't put up a boundary around that, that's a you issue. Whereas people would fight back and say, no, it's them doing it to me. Well, they are, but you're allowing it. You're not walking away from it. You're not saying, I'm out. You stop talking to me that way and I won't be around.
You're saying it's acceptable.
Right. So if
Yeah.
you're training people how to treat you by allowing that to continue, then that's what's going to happen.
This is back to understanding you have more control over your outcomes than you think you do, and it's getting away from that victimization process.
Right. And
the victimization mindset. And yes, there are things out of your control, but there's so much more in your control than most people understand.
And those things are so much more in your control than you think. And what people that I run into come up against is, it's amazing to me. They get abused or they get gaslit or they get flack back that doesn't make them feel good. So what they do is two things. They either try harder to get the person to, remember a few weeks ago I talked about this stuff. They try harder to get the person or the company or the people in their business. Everybody will love me more if I try harder, if I do more, if I love more, if I love harder. That is not a thing. It will not happen. You will not get more money by working harder.
You just raise your expectations on yourself.
You're just training them how to treat you, that you're going to do more for less, and therefore they can treat you that way, and then they can treat you poorly. Same thing in a relationship.
Guess what I get when I treat them poorly? I get more effort out of them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because they want to please you because they think that will work. Now that's a family trained trait. That happens in family training. That doesn't happen just all of a sudden in adulthood. That happens in, I don't want you to be mad at me. So I will work harder to show you by doing the dishes, by cleaning the house, by doing whatever, by, here, translate to, I'll do the extra spreadsheet. I'll stay late. I'll do these things to show you that I deserve a promotion. You don't get promoted.
Yep.
Nobody loves you more. It just doesn't happen. All it does is make you feel worse because you're waiting and spinning your wheels while people are out, playing golf or doing something else because they're not thinking about what you're doing. They're out of the office at 4 and you're still there at 10. And they're like, why'd you do that? And you're like, well, because I was doing the project for you. Like, well, you didn't have to, you don't get back what you're putting in. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't do a great job to the best of your ability, but you have to know where your boundary is so that you can avoid those situations so you're not sucked in by it.
Yep.
Such an important and very important piece.
And by the way, don't you get at this point, if you start displaying, especially in the workplace or out in public, if you display these types of traits, you tend to attract people who will take advantage of them.
Yes. So we call that in psychology, you're pulling for.
Yeah.
So when you're raised in your own environment, you're trained into a role. Everybody has a role, which either becomes very overt that you know what it is, very rarely that you don't, right? Until you do some kind of therapy or self-help because you know something's wrong. You have these roles. And when you have these roles, you get really pulled in to always pulling for the same type of treatment. And that's what I get that question. That's probably one of the top 5 questions of my whole career all the time is, why do I keep ending up in the same relationship? Why do I keep doing the same thing? Why do people like this show up in my life? And I always am honest, as you know, straight shooter. I'm like, because you keep pulling for them. And they look at me like, what do you mean? They think they're being blamed. I'm like, no, you're pulling for what you know. You've been trained how to be treated. And we have these 6 senses. We have intuition. We have pheromones, we have oxytocin, we have all these neurological, we have all these different pieces that field us out into the world and say, come to me, come find me. And that's why I work with, people who are in their 30s now trying to date.
Yeah.
And they've been through a series of, right?
Why do I always find narcissists?
Why do I always find people who can't commit? Or why do I always find people who don't have a job? Or that's a big one, or people who lie. I'm like, well, because you're and there's books written on this, but I've been calling it this for years. Another $1 million book missed. Is you have to fix your picker.
Yep.
And in order to fix your picker, you have to be able to know what you pull for and where your damages are, so that you don't find people who have like a heat-seeking missile to those damages that come into you. And that's a whole nother show. Like, I could do a whole show on fixing your picker and how to manage that whole thing. Because we unconsciously and subconsciously are so trained, all of us, to go towards what we know. And there is something to be said for, we go and marry our fathers, if we're, we go and marry our mothers, unless you have good self-awareness to be able to be like, oh my God, that's just like my father, and I don't want to do that. Like, if that's a bad thing, you have to be able to have good self-awareness. But people walk around blindly so much without really taking good self-care to have the love that they deserve, because they're not thinking, I deserve love today in the way I want.
Yep.
And what does that look like? But people are so
the devil,
people are so committed to, well, this is what I know and this is what I deserve, and that must be the normal. So therefore, if no one ever said I love you in my family, then why would anyone that I'm in a relationship with, that I'm going to tolerate that?
So you tend to lean that way, but you also attract.
Oh yeah.
You're sending out a beacon, some moth to a flame.
Right. Well, you're sending it out. So for example, I think one of the best examples I can give is like when you're sending out that beacon of I'm a people pleaser. People pleasers are notorious for being targeted because it's so obvious right out of the gate. And people pleasers are targeted heavily by a narcissist.
Yeah.
Because a narcissist can immediately be like, oh, I've got her, or I've got him. Yeah. I know how to maneuver. Now, people will say to me, do they do it on purpose? Is it active with malice? Sometimes, absolutely. Not all the time. A lot of times it's a I call it a quid pro quo. Everyone's just doing it because it's what's coming naturally. And
they're seeking supply.
They're seeking supply, and the other person's seeking supply, because the people pleaser is seeking supply of approval and love and belonging. And the people that are doing narcissistic things are looking for someone to take care of them and feed their supply of being nurtured. Yeah. And then by the time they realize that a year in, everybody's off to the races and oh shit.
And guys fall into this white knight thing all the time, where I'm only worthy of love as much as I help people. So you find someone who really needs a lot of help, and then you wonder why you're always attracting people who always need a lot of help.
Right.
You're seeking it out because that's how you generate your self-worth.
Right. And like a perfect example, I have a client that he notoriously, so he pays for everything. He always pays for everybody. He's like, and we've talked for years about like, this is how you get your sense of belonging. You feel appreciated. But then you complain about the fact that no one ever steps up to to take care of you. No one ever, and then he talks about it with his relationships. He always pulls for females in his life that get in relationships with him that are not comparable to his station in life. Like they don't have even equivalent to what a job would be. Like they don't have the shared moral and value belief system, but all it is that go for the money, and because he has a lot of money. And he gets frustrated with that because he can't understand why they can't just see him because he's a great guy. And but because even though we've talked about it many times, he still goes back to his default, that his picker goes right to because that type of person goes right at his ego of, you're so awesome. You're so wealthy. Excuse me. So he gets enamored with that. It blinds him. And then by the time he realizes it, he's too far in. And then he's like, oh no. And then he realizes it, but then he's like, how do I get out? So then we have to spend time like being like, how do we get out? And it usually fizzles because he has to, and he doesn't stop paying. He doesn't do that, but he ends up he requires more of them. And the more he requires of them to be present and all those things to get the love he deserves, they check out.
Yeah.
And then he's like, why? And I'm like, because we're doing the same pattern. It's the same pattern we had in your parents. It's so, obvious. And it's just one of those psychological phenomenons that happens, and people just are like, but that's people are always going, that's blaming. No, it's about looking at the whole scenario.
It's examining your part.
It's looking about how the whole cycle and the dynamic impacts you to make you have this happen. And so unfortunately, that's what happens. So I don't think I haven't seen any comments today. I know people are listening though, because I've gotten text, but maybe people are going to go back. But so
you need to identify what you control and control it, because there's so much that you can't control. you have to take control of what you can. I know it sounds loopy, but that's a big principle.
No, exactly. So I think that, so I'm going to run down a list that I went through. I think probably in my very first show of the year, when I introduced the concept of the year of you and the year of myself, is how do you do this particular technique today? Let's go back to that beginning thing. And it's a kind of good refresher, is signs of having strong personal boundaries so that you can get the love that you deserve. Because people really want to have the love that they deserve, and they deserve it, right? So do not tolerate disrespect.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you become a total wackadoo and then freak out, but you just know how to detach with love.
Don't reward it.
Right. Don't reward it. Don't train people how to treat you with disrespect. You speak your truth without fear. When something isn't right, something doesn't feel right, something isn't feeling healthy, you speak your truth without fear of being put down, retaliated against, or whatever, because you just have to, or else you're going to reap the benefits of not having that happen. Others know, you have to have the others know not to cross certain lines with you. So be that person. And as you know, I'm that person. Like, people know where my line is. They know, like, I have one friend that's always like, yeah, I would never say that to her because I know better. Right? Because she knows what the answer is going to be.
Yeah.
If she says something in this particular way, she's always like, I wouldn't have, because I'll say, why didn't you say something? She's like, I'm not saying anything to you. She's like, I know better, right? Because she knows.
Yeah.
And I always say, you can say something to me, but it's got to be in a specific way, else you're going to get that reaction. Yep. She doesn't like the reaction she gets in the way that she gives it to me. So of course she's going to get that. And that's, that's me giving her a line. I'm not going to take that, right?
Change your approach.
Right. Change your approach and I'll give you a better one, right? You give me and I'll give you. Go for feeling peaceful and not drained. Don't use your mental energy to drain on other people.
Amen.
Right? Attract people into your life that are genuine and authentic and are not, running you. They're not trying to run over on you and give you the con. You got to be astute to the con. Watch for toxicity in people. And try to distance yourselves from that as much as possible. Doesn't mean you have to completely detach, but you have to know who's toxic and what's toxic and stay out of it, because people love drama. And drama is toxic, and adult drama is bullying, by the way. I always tell my adults when they get into those things, I'm like, you're in a bullying situation of just adulthood. You're just out of teenage years, but you're still getting into the bullying. And then I think the last one, most importantly, is you prioritize your own well-being without any guilt. Number one. You come first. Without you coming first, in not a selfish way, you come first. If you take care of yourself and you put your boundaries up and you're setting that healthy space, and you don't have anything to say, hey, I'm sorry I said no. No. If you don't want to go to the movies because you're tired and you say no, and everyone's like, yeah, but no is no. No is a full sentence with a period or an exclamation point, but no is a full sentence. And being able to live to get the love you deserve and all those things is being able to set your own line for yourself, what you're allowing, what you commit to, what you're committed to, and that stuff will follow in. So we covered tons of bases today on this, but I think in the year of me, the year of Kim, and giving that, imparting to you and all the people that are loving this concept, the year of you is super important to follow those pieces, right? And good morning, Leanne from Minnesota is joining us. And it's so lovely to see you. Thank you for having the comment that it was a great show. So anyway, Lou, you are going to be lovely and kind today to put up all my links for this weekend and for the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl squares and continuing on. And thank you everybody who is on my team and cheering me on as I run towards the start line, April 21st of the Boston Marathon.
And just scroll back on this page for full information on the event coming up on the 2nd.
Yes, and you can get constant updates on the ever-changing Super Bowl square list for the payouts that are on the 9th of this month. Super Bowl is not this weekend. Anyway, have a great week. Enjoy. And hey, everybody, go out and live your best life and live the year of you.